2008 X5 4.8. This car, the alternator was drenched in oil and killed the alternator and the battery. Someone else replaced the alternator. I had done valve cover gaskets before on that beater, the white 325, and so I got the job of putting new valve cover gaskets on. It's a really big job. I'm not done yet. Some of the sticking points, get a flashlight here. Some of the sticking points, well, there's not a lot of room to get your cover on and off. The top of this, let's hope this will focus. The top of this sensor right here is usually there was the sticking points. It has sharp edges, so you're concerned about ripping your gasket. So I made some corners out of some old gallon oil jugs, and that worked good. It ripped into the piece that I made, but it didn't rip into the gasket. And this is what it looked like. I just cut the bottom out of and that sits here. This is where that protrudes, and so this kept the cover from getting ripped. The gaskets themselves don't really lock in there, and I didn't want to put anything on them, so I didn't put anything on the first one, and it was kind of hard. I had to keep coaching it back to where it wanted to be with my fingers, and there wasn't a lot of room to do that. So this time I'm going to use some painter's tape and just catch it on the outside edge just a little bit, and probably tape this on also. On the first one, I put all these pieces in beforehand, and I lost one of them, so I'm going to have to replace that. So I'm going to leave them off with this one. This would be the top closer to the middle of the car. These I bolted it down, and it really didn't want to snug down, so I started the bolts, and on the top, on this part, there's a longer bolt, and then the top closer to the outside edge of the engine is a shorter one. I used some of the longer ones to draw it down a little bit, and then I tapped around, and I really had this top end a little crooked this way, and it just wouldn't go down, so I took everything out, jiggled it around, and I started the bottom first with longer bolts, and it just clicked, and it went down, and I'm not sure it was being held up by maybe one of the spark plug tubes. I neglected to put any oil on the rubber part, and it seemed like they were being held up, so these I'm going to apply quite a bit of oil on the top so that they won't bind up. This engine is really a tool eater and a part eater. There's so many places for it to suck your parts. I used the magnet several times. I actually got everything back, but I didn't think I was going to get a couple of things back. Before I start on this other side, I'm going to tie some strings on my tools in case I drop them down, because there's lots of places where it'll go down and just get jammed or logged in, or you can't even see. I broke down and bought a camera, and it worked well to find some things I've lost, and to look to make sure my gaskets were being seated properly around the edges of the cover. In order to clean the mating parts of the head, I had to cut this down. It was wider, so I cut it down so it would follow along inside the where the head is. In the engine, there's several spaces where I use this plastic scraper also, where there's just not enough room. I'm hitting on both sides like this. There's just not enough room for a wide scraper. Got those cleaned up on both sides. Magnets handy again because I'd lost this wrench, and I didn't think I was going to get this one back without maybe taking the cover off the bottom. I pulled the dipstick out. It wasn't hard to get out, but it's above the oil level. I didn't realize that. Oh, it's below. I guess below the oil level, and I lost some oil. That's why the car's jacked up, holding the oil from coming out. So if you really want to take the oil dipstick out, because it did help to make space here. Space in between the engine compartment and then the head, getting the valve cover down. The tube was sitting here, and it was just in the way to get the good clearance. On this cover, I actually had it up in the air like this, and it dropped down on there, and to get over top of the sticking point again. On this side, I haven't put the cover back on, but to get the cover off, I left it flat and just twisted it like this, and it popped out. So hopefully that's what I can do to get it back in, and get it again fairly flat, down a little bit, and then pop up over. Wish me luck. This might be advertising for Harbor Freight, but I bought the set of these. They came in handy. And the initial takedown of the parts, this worked. I saw somebody else do this on YouTube, same engine, to squeeze these connectors, and that worked well. Again, they don't know me by first name at Harbor Freight, but maybe they will soon. I bought this stubby 1/4 inch air ratchet. It came in really handy because there's not much room in here to do much down in this area. Oh, I wish I'd grab this flashlight. Let me grab a flashlight. And that was short. It was actually short end with the end with the little whip hose on there. There's room to maneuver it in back in this area. Just came in real handy to get the bolts in and out, and I'm sure it'll come in handy for the rest of the assembly. Working out as many tricks as I can help you guys out with. This little cushion helped a lot. I've been just kind of kneeling up on the engine up there, climbing up on that ladder, or just leaning over it to get to the bolts in the rocker. The ignition coils, this would be they're just in the box, so I can put them back in the same spots in case they were running codes, pushing codes. This one would be the last one on the driver's side, and it had to be, the connector had to be down, and it had to be exactly in this position to get it out. It was jammed up against the we call it the firewall, and when it was up like this, there wasn't enough room, and tried it like this. This seemed to be the best, and pushing it away from you to get it out. So I'll be in there like that, and hopefully this will drop down and go back in with not as much trouble to get it out. Time will tell. If I think of anything else, I'll put them in the comments. It's a big job, but just like anything else, take your time. I made notes on different things, and should go back together for you. A good one.